Good day, guys. My name is Mr. Snubbles. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'm going to be talking about crossplay for Dead by Daylight. I'm making this video specifically for all my console players because I want to give them some tips to go against PC players. I usually play on PlayStation 4 and it was a completely different environment, and some tactics that I seen players trying to use it against me now on crossplay, but it doesn't really work, and I want to give you guys some tips that might help you going against PC players when you're doing crossplay. Just want to let you guys know, if you have crossplay enabled, matchmaking is way much more less, so you will match up to anyone pretty much quickly. So I would highly recommend keeping that on because you could get into matches quicker. If you have it disabled and you want to play against solely with your console, then I completely understand, because it might be of a different experience, but just give it a go, give it a try, because you might learn a skill or something going against other players. Anyways, I hope you have a wonderful day, and let's get to these. My first tip to console players: you have to understand that PC players have an advantage, and I will show you guys how they have an advantage. Firstly is that they can change the quality of their graphics in game, and this is something really basic that you can change. I think PlayStation, you don't really have anything else to change because it's already set to the standard of the console. However, PC player still has an additional advantage, and this is using the Nvidia built-in in-game filter. What does that do? Well, as you can see, the filter can add more brightness to the game and changes the colors. This really is an advantage to PC players, because if they hit you, they can see the colors way much more stronger than you normally would if it was on or off. Just know, if you're trying to hide in plain sight by crouching, just know that it might work in console, and I've seen many people have done that before, and the killer wouldn't see them. But on PC, you would not be forgiven. So be careful with standing still. Make sure if it's killer coming by, make sure he doesn't see you at all, and be behind something. And yeah, try to use your third view as an advantage. Alright guys, so the next tip would be to always be near a pallet if you're being chased. As a console player, you're kind of vulnerable when it comes to juking. Now, I'm not trying to go at people at this. There is some really good PS4 players and Xbox players that can juke pretty good, and I'm not gonna lie, I faced a couple players like that before. But you have to understand that when you go against higher tier PC killers, their aim will be on point. So that's why I always recommend you to be near a pallet, just in case things go wrong. Now we'll show you guys an example of how this Claudette tried to juke me, but she failed and ended up getting hit. So I have other examples as well, where there were some times where I was getting juked by console players, and some of them went well, some of them went wrong, and we can analyze together on how these console players did when I was chasing them. I think the best one was the shit shack, or the little cabin in the corners. I was I was outplayed very well in that one, and I give props to her. And yeah, I hope you guys see what they did wrong, and maybe you can tell me if there was a different way you guys can approach that when you're getting chased. And I get that Doctor is a really top tier killer, and it's pretty much hard to go against him when you're going against someone who's a higher rank, but there's always ways to manage around that. And even if it wasn't the Doctor, how would you pursue on this situation with other killers, and what can you do as a console player or someone who's not playing PC, and what can you do to prevent getting smacked? And honestly, I think my best advice is, if the killer's on you neck to neck and there's a pallet in front of you, just drop it and just go to the next pallet and try a loop as much with the same pallet as much as you can. If the killer doesn't break the pallet, then obviously try to loop it as much. If the killer breaks it, then move on quickly to the next pallet, or try to vote something that has enough area that gives you that the killer can reach to easily. Alright, another tip that I would highly recommend is, if you want to play Dead by Daylight crossplay, I highly recommend you to play with your friends. Literally, yeah, just tell your friends from PC, like, hey, I want to play some Dead by Daylight. And a great way for a communication, if you're playing on Xbox, PC players, you actually have an app called Xbox Companion, and this is pretty much a Xbox app on the Windows, and you can actually start a party here, and people from Xbox can join if they have Xbox Live, obviously. And yeah, this is a great way for communication within the game of Dead by Daylight. I did notice that PlayStation doesn't have this. I think they kind of do have an app like that, but it doesn't really necessarily work. So if you're playing a different platform, I guess the only best app I can recommend is Discord. And I'm pretty sure many of you guys already know what Discord is, and it's kind of self-explanatory. So I guess in a way, you're gonna have to put an earbuds over. You're gonna have to use an earbud for communication, obviously, and then put your headphones over that for console players like PlayStation, Nintendo Switch. And yeah, that's another way, an alternative way to communicate with your PC friends. But yeah, definitely give it a go playing with Survivor friends, because it's really interesting on how you communicate, and it's also interesting to see how they play on a different platform. Another tip that I will highly recommend is that do not stand near the pallets, and always make good judgment of when to drop it. And obviously this might be a very basic thing for pro players, like, oh yeah, drop the pallet, I know that. But you have to understand that if you're playing on a TV, you might have like a 4 millisecond latency compared to a player on PC that might have a monitor that has a 1 millisecond latency. So there is a difference gap, so they will see more frames refreshing, and also they have less lag, so in theory they would hit first than any console player would, unless a console player is playing on a TV or monitor that has a 1 millisecond latency. So just know that there is a latency difference with the equipment you might have compared to a PC player. So make better judgment and drop the pallet if you know they're really getting neck to neck. So that's why always drop the pallet if you're playing console 1 second earlier than you normally would when you're playing on console. Alright guys, that's all the tips I have for now, and I'm pretty sure there's more tips out there on YouTube you can search out, and maybe you can find other players as well, talk about their experience and give you some advice as well with crossplay. Thing guys, if you are a console player transitioning to playing games on PC, just know that most games now you can actually use your controller instead of a mouse and keyboard. So if you feel more comfortable playing with the controller and you're moving to PC, then you can still use your controller and you will still be able to use it as you normally would. So don't feel afraid that if you just move on to PC, you won't be able to play no more on a controller. So there's always that. So give it a go and tell me what's the difference between your mouse and keyboard and your controller. There will be a difference, and you will see that maybe mouse and keyboard probably will be the way to go. And honestly, that's what I was honestly playing Dead by Daylight with controller for a while, probably like a year. And I recently started using mouse and keyboard, and it just felt more comfortable and more natural to me. It takes time to adjust because I spent so much time playing on console, but I guess all I can say is that give it a go and you will see that it's a wonderful experience using a mouse and keyboard. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time. Peace out.